When our little girl was born, we got a Subaru. It's where she said her first word,
No.
saw her first day of school,
Bye-bye.
made a best friend forever.
Oh my God.
The back seat of my Subaru is where she grew up.
What?
The 2015 Subaru Forester.
What?
Built to be there for your family. Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
University Subaru.
The wise choice!
Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on this Wednesday, April the 1st, April Fool's Day. Good to have you with us today. We're going to talk about something that we're not dealing with April Fool's Day. This is one of my really hot topics. I enjoy talking about UFOs. Bill Wickersham is with us. Good to have you here, Bill.
Thank you.
Wanted to start, and you are our local resident UFOologist, I guess you could say.
Well,
but you had an article in the Tribune not very long ago, and I think we talked about it on here too. But your article in the Tribune was talking about the UFO incident in Cape Girardeau,
correct,
right?
correct.
Which happened when?
1941. The alleged event occurred in 41. And by the way,
is that the one with the minister?
Yes, Reverend William Huffman.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Red Star Baptist Church was called out in the evening to say a blessing over the three ETs that had crashed, purportedly had crashed outside of Cape Girardeau.
Yeah.
And
now, one of the readers of that article of yours totally disagreed with you, and he called you an embarrassment.
But both an embarrassment and talking April Fools, I'm delusional.
Okay.
And so, but in terms of the embarrassment, I wrote a piece, you probably saw it also in mid-March, in response, an op-ed piece in response to this, and pointed out that ship, in terms of me embarrassing MU, sailed a long time ago on about 10 issues, starting with civil rights, 1962, interviews with launch officers at Whiteman, where we discovered illegal procedures, etc.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, I think anybody you talk to when you mention UFO, it piques their interest. But are they going to admit to saying, yes, I kind of believe that there could be something out there? I think a lot of times people are concerned to actually admit that they believe that there's a possibility.
It depends on the context and how it's asked and when. On polls, where it's written poll responses, sometimes as many as 70 or 80% of folks say they believe in the reality of UFOs. Now, they don't, like most of us, don't know everything that's involved with that. Peak interest there. It's sort of like the work we did in nuclear weapons. If you ask most people if they're concerned about nuclear weapons, they will say yes. If you ask them, where is that on your list of things to do about anything, education, research, just talking with people, it's not even on the list.
Yeah.
People have daily stuff to do, Paul.
Now, one interesting aspect that took place, what was it, a couple of months ago, one of the former officials in the Bill Clinton administration made a comment. Well, you go ahead. You can tell this better than I.
What happened was, as you know, John Podesta was Bill Clinton's chief of staff. He was President Obama's transition chair and is scheduled probably to be Hillary Clinton's chief of staff. When he left the Obama administration just a few weeks ago, he did a tweet to Maureen Dowd of the New York Times, listing the 10 biggest disappointments of the last 2 years in his life. Number one on the list was his inability to get UF disclosure from the administration. Now, that's a heavy statement.
Yeah, yeah.
Political statement. You remember what happened to Dennis Kucinich when he even mentioned that he had seen a UFO, he was laughed off the platform. I can't imagine John Podesta saying that without having somehow checked it with Hillary Clinton if he's going to be her campaign manager. But maybe it doesn't work that way. I don't know.
Well, now we've talked about this several times. Do you feel that there will ever be a day when we will really know one way or the other whether we are being visited by other beings?
First thing we have to do, Paul, is look at the data that are already there. I mean, the Colonel Corso story, holding ETs in his hand.
Right. But yes, and I'm not disputing that at all.
I know.
But will there ever be a day that officials come out and say, yes, there is something there?
Well, I think I've mentioned before, we don't control this. The folks who are visiting obviously are in charge if they have the kind of technology. We don't know what they're, and we don't even know the who. There are several military folks who, Clifford Stone, for instance, very reliable guy, who says he has seen the documents in the military that there are 57 different groups. So, I mean,
57 different groups of what?
Of ETs.
57 different groups?
Yes,
He's saying
yes,
that there were 57 different groups that have visited here?
Just Google Sergeant Stone. He was an operations person who went out and collected the garbage when we have crashes, like the ones that are outlined in this book here, 74 different types of crashes worldwide. Clifford Stone was on that operational team. He's willing to go under oath before Congress tomorrow to swear to all this. And not only does he think there's 87, but my colleague, so to speak, Paul Hellyer, former defense minister of Canada, with whom we just wrote an article. I did one with him and Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. He thinks there are even more than that.
Now, how is Edgar Mitchell, how is he getting away with saying what he is saying and not being silenced?
Well, things have changed. In the early days, and like Reverend Huffman at Cape Girardeau, my friend Bob Salas, the launch officer at Maelstrom Air Force Base, on and on. There were government regulations. You signed non-disclosure agreements, and that was under what was called JNAP 146. During the Clinton administration, some of those restrictions were removed by the U.S. Secretary of Air Force. I think her name was Windfall or something like that.
So this is how Edgar Mitchell is able to go on record and say...
he's just also, Edgar Mitchell is an autonomous guy. He's going to do it no matter.
I mean, because he has come out point blank saying he knows.
He said it's the extraterrestrial hypothesis is at the 100% level of confidence.
Now, this is a NASA astronaut.
Well, Brian O'Leary, Gordon Cooper. It's not just Edgar.
Yeah, and I've watched some of their interviews online, and they are making no doubts in their mind with their statements.
But the point of all this is whether they're right or they aren't. In most research that we do and when we sponsor, we will listen to anecdotal stuff from people with high credentials. Now, I've challenged lots of people with high credentials, so I don't just roll over. But that's where we start, and we need some hearings on this.
Okay. Bill, as always, we're out of time, but thank you for coming by. Pleasure visiting with you. I enjoy talking with you. Tomorrow, League of Women Voters and a lot more. Thank you so much for joining us. Our program directed by Travis McMillen, Reynolds Journalism Institute. Audio is Pat Akers from KBIA. Our floor director is Brendan McDermott, and our assistant producer and guest coordinator, Uncle James Mauser. Drop me an email, pepperp.missouri.edu. Bye-bye.